It's Wednesday, April 14th, and time for your Barbados Today morning news update. The retail sector has been given the green light to reopen once the necessary cleaning has been done to protect the health and the safety of workers and customers. Minister of Home Affairs, Information and Public Affairs Wilfred Abrams made the announcement last night ahead of today's third day of cleaning the ash blanket in Barbados following the eruption of the La Soufre volcano in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. He said government departments that deal with the public will be open and others will follow on Thursday. The Grant the Adams International Airport remains closed while there is a limited reopening of the Bridgetown port. Fish markets remain closed, but vendors can check on their fish boxes, and all markets are now opened with the exception of Cheapside.
With respect to the private sector, retail and normal business can commence if you are in a position to do so. This is contingent on your having been able to clean your premises sufficiently that your employees can work safely in them, and patrons or customers can actually attend to do their business without threat to themselves or their health. So the private sector can open tomorrow. Commerce can resume tomorrow once they're in a position to do so. There has been some concern expressed with respect to passengers on flights and their PCR testing, either for traveling or for coming into Barbados, occasioned by the closure of the airport. With respect to outgoing passengers, the Ministry of Health will not be charging for a retest, either PCR or rapid antigen, to board your flight to your destination. Therefore, if you need a second or even a third test to meet the requirements of your flight, there will be no additional cost. Tests are to be done at the gymnasium or at the polyclinic. As concerns incoming passengers, persons are advised to be retested to board overseas. In the event that they cannot receive a PCR test, arrangements have been made for testing at the airport. This is the Grant Adams International Airport. Quarantine will then be required for 5 complete days with repeat tests to exit quarantine on day 6. Quarantine will be allowed at a designated hotel or at Paragon Base.
The minister said the period of cleaning of the ash, which began on Monday, will also continue.
With respect to the cleanup campaign, we started in a major way on the highways, the significant highways, and this is a all of government and joint public sector, private sector approach. Most of the construction companies in Barbados are involved in this cleanup process, and we are tackling the major arteries and the major highways first before we get to the secondary roads. This will take a while because of the nature of what it is that we have to do. We are cleaning up the ash, and in some instances, as you're cleaning the ash is still falling. We've started to clean Bridgetown as well. They started from Fontebelle and moving into Bridgetown. The Sanitation Service Authority and the private sector is going to be working throughout the night to try to get Bridgetown clean.
There is a warning that the next few days will be crucial for Barbados as it undertakes a government-sanctioned national cleanup of the ash from the St. Vincent and the Grenadines La Soufre volcano with water that is in scarce supply. It's coming from the director of the Sir Arthur Lewis Institute for Social and Economic Studies at the University of the West Indies Cable Campus, Dr. Dawn Marshall. Emmanuel Joseph picks up the story.
Dr. Marshall said that the government will have to make a decision sooner rather than later on the water use during this time of national cleanup. He told Barbados Today that this will be the tipping point in relation to the kind of economic repair and post-COVID recovery required. The economist believes such a tipping point could prove frustrating because there is no other substitute right now better than potable water that can easily be made available to households and businesses across the island to assist them in the cleanup.
For now, if we can't get past this volcanic transition in another 10 to 15 days, I expect that we would have, by the end of June, a far more deleterious position in relation to growth in the economy than, say, last year. Remember, around June or so, the economy reflected something looking like 11 to 12% contraction. If we can't, within 10 days, up to my mind, have the post-volcanic cleanup done without too much of an impact on time and our water reserves, I do anticipate that we will come in for a even worse return.
Dr. Marshall has also cautioned that the next couple of days will be crucial for the government in determining the speed at which business returns to normal as the authorities seek to manage the post-COVID lockdown environment and the urgency to proceed with a cleanup that has to be water-based. Meanwhile, the university economist said there may be an upside to the ash fall from La Soufriere volcano for Barbados, pointing to the possibilities of research and experimentation of the material in the area of tropical agriculture.
I imagine that there will be some value to the inert material that's being produced out of the magma ash fall. So there is an opportunity to perhaps look to the extent to which this can be plowed back into fields and to make for richer content, richer soil content, the rest of it.
Director of the Sir Arthur Lewis Institute for Social and Economic Studies at the University of the West Indies Cayfield campus, Dr. Don Marshall. And I am Emmanuel Joseph for Barbados Today.
Residents of Redmond's Village and Qulan St. Thomas say they are fed up with persistent water outages. And following a visit to the area recently, the Democratic Labour Party's spokesperson on health, Paul Gibson, is calling on government to urgently address the situation by installing a larger water main in the area. Gibson, who complained that residents had been without water for some 48 hours, contended that the problem was due to an age-old main that had never been replaced.
For over 30-something years, the lovely people of this area have been having challenges with water supplies. Now, the issue is that for the last 30 years, they've had a 3-inch main on this main road right behind me, coming all the way up, serving both Qulan and Redmond's Village. The issue before us is that government upon government has come here and they have allowed the size of the main to remain the same size over 30 years, while the population has expanded at least 5 or so years. Now, we are trying to bring awareness to the fact that the people in Redmond's Village have been without water for 48 hours. We have a lot of volcanic dust, which has sulfur and sulfur dioxide in it and causes a lot of skin irritation, a lot of asthma and so on. They can't even wet down their lawns, can't even wet down the houses because there's no water. I'm calling on the government and the authorities to immediately install a 4 to 5 inch pipe into this area to facilitate the movement of water to the houses, both on the above and below the road. The people of Qulan continue to suffer with water outages daily.
Residents who asked not to be identified told Barbados Today the situation had become overbearing.
It's don't be fair because sometimes like water's come out at 4 o'clock in the morning and by 6:30 sometimes it gone, even by 6 o'clock it gone. So it don't be fair that because you're paying a water bill every month and you hardly getting water.
And then sometimes you got to call your truck too because
and if your truck come up, they may just tap the tank
and go down. And many times the tank low, you got to be called in. Oh, we coming back, we came back, they don't ever come back. Many times they don't come back. Or they come back, they can't, who don't know.
Can't ever tell them for let your tank because they're telling you they can't fill it up and all sort of thing.
Before I moved into Redmond Village in 1988, I was living at the sea. And not one day did we go without water. But for the last 32 years, almost six months of the year, we go without water. And it's been so, even on Christmas days, sometimes you have no water. So we really need something done here in Redmond's Village.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
Regional developments now. Antigua and Barbuda's Minister of Health, Wellness and the Environment, Sir Malwyn Joseph, says all COVID-19 health protocols will be enforced when the country accommodates 250 people from St. Vincent and the Grenadines who have been displaced following the eruption of the La Soufrière volcano. More from ABS News.
The Vincentians coming will have to be in quarantine for the 14 days. And those who have family connection in Antigua and Barbuda will be able to go to stay with their families. If they do not have family connection, they will stay in the accommodation at Jolly Beach.
Minister Joseph speaking with ABS's Ursula Charles Jr. last evening. Now, while physical accommodation will be paramount, the health minister says the assistance will supersede providing just a bed.
I will personally be visiting Jolly Beach and looking at the facility to be sure that not only do they have accommodation for sleeping, but they should have recreational facilities as well. There is a potential for some psychosocial support that these individuals will need.
And finally, just 10 countries account for around 75% of global COVID-19 vaccinations, while others have yet to start. That's according to United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who warned that a global vaccine gap threatens everyone's health and well-being. He made the comment as he addressed a special segment on COVID-19 of the Economic and Social Council Forum on Financing and Development recently.
Just 10 countries across the world account for around 75% of global vaccinations. Many countries have yet to start vaccinating their healthcare workers and most vulnerable citizens. A global vaccine gap threatens everyone's health and well-being. The virus is dangerous everywhere if it spreads unchecked anywhere. And global value chains do not function if one link is broken. Some estimates put the global cost of unequal access and vaccine hoarding at more than $9 trillion. Since the pandemic began 1 year ago, no element of our multilateral response has gone as it should. More than 3 million people have lost their lives. Some 120 million people have fallen back into extreme poverty, while the equivalent of 255 million full-time jobs have been lost. We have seen the worst recession in 90 years, and the crisis is far from over.
That's news. But for the very latest, visit us at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook, and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media in bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. And you can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM and Capital Media HD 99.3 FM.